Good evening, everybody, and a really warm welcome to the Fifth Estate, first one for 2018. I'm Sally Warhaft. It's such a pleasure to be back, and a particular pleasure tonight to have as our first guest the leader and founder of the Jacqui Lambie network, the former Senator for Tasmania, and now author of Rebel with a Cause. Which is, part of the reason why we're so lucky to get you here. Regulars for the Fifth Estate will know I just love interviewing politicians. I love even more interviewing former politicians because they actually occasionally say what's really on their mind. The delight with you, Jacqui, is that I feel like it would make no difference. And I think that's a first. And I think that's why this room is full. So a warm welcome for Jacqui Lambie.
Yeah, I do have to say, former unemployed or whatever, if I've got something to say, you're going to know about it. I'll be honest with you.
I want to begin with why you wanted to be a politician. And you write in the book, and I quote, "God forbid normal people enter politics." Why can't a normal, everyday Australian be in politics? Perhaps the better question is, why would a normal, everyday Australian want to be in politics? So let's start with you answering your own question.
Yeah, I think for me, when you go through the mess that I went through for 10 years with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and you sit there and you think to yourself, seriously, this is not, if that department's not working, there must be a lot of other departments that are in the same situation, and absolutely I am correct about that. I think just we can't continue to have people brought up by the union and through the union movement and people in big business without having normal people in politics. We just can't. I think they've become very desensitised along the way. They lack the compassion to be there, and God forbid, don't talk about real life experience because they don't have any. So for me, it was pretty simple. I remember sitting back down in about 2002 and I was on the floor crying. It had been a couple of years I'd been under DVA, and I just made a promise to God. I didn't know much about faith then, but I remember sitting there making a promise to God, please just give me a second chance at life and I will come and help my mates that are under Veterans Affairs. Because it wasn't just me. I had my own friends living in the same suburb as what I was, very dear friends that had served, and I could see their lives had spiralled out of control. They'd had injuries earlier, and I could see the impact it was having on their kids. And I thought, how does a department get away with infecting these people the way it's done and making their lives so miserable? So I guess it's the old fire in the belly and just never giving up. And so, of course, when I had that second chance at life, there was not going to be anyone standing in my way, I can assure you. I was going to make it to that bloody Senate seat one way or another. Nothing was going to stop me.
It is astonishing the way you set the scene in the book. You were basically lying on your couch in the middle afternoon, slightly off your head on medications.
And alcohol, probably.
And you had been unemployed for the better part of a decade. Mm-hmm. And you turn on the television and it's ABC Question Time. The whole thing sounds like a sort of, nightmare, really. And you literally pray to God for a Senate seat.
Yeah, I did say, I was on a lot of painkillers and a lot of alcohol. I was absolutely bloody delusional, let's be honest. I mean, who else would sit there and go, oh, yeah, I've got to be in that seat there. So I think for me, but it was a Dorothy Dixer that gave me, because I couldn't understand. I thought, because I'm very big on marketing, I thought, why I couldn't understand why somebody on your own side would ask you a question about your own portfolio and you were selling it in amongst 70-odd people that were sitting, or there wasn't even 70-odd sitting there because they don't all sit there at once unless there's a vote being taken. And I thought, that's not how you sell Avon. You've got to get out there and actually sell it. And I think that's what really amazed me more than anything, because I learnt a lot more about Dorothy Dixers as we're going along. And they still do the same crap. It's like, get out in the street and sell it, because no one's listening to you in the Senate. Nobody watches Question Time unless they're off their bloody heads, obviously.
Oh, we all know how to get a Senate seat. Now you got to do a pray, right?
Pray hard.
Yeah, and be careful what you pray for. You had a similar sort of experience with the army when you were a lot younger, a teenager, where you decided pretty much on a whim to join the army, and you do that. And then you describe in the book walking through the gates of the army the first time and thinking again, oh my God, what have I done? Was it a similar feeling? Do you actually remember the first moments that you walked into Parliament House and how you felt?
I think, I was still lost in the fog back then. I'll be brutally honest with you. I was still getting over my own psychological impact from the Department of Veterans Affairs and what it had done for me. I was still recovering. And I was probably about 4 years too early, but, I thought at the age of 28 going into Parliament, no, not really, the age of 40-ish something, if I didn't get in this time around, I'm not sure whether I could hold off for another 4 years. So I can remember walking into Parliament, and I can tell you now, I had no idea. I couldn't even have told you back then, the day I walked in there, what the difference was between the dark side, which is the House of Reps there, and a Senate. I really couldn't tell you. I didn't know a damn thing. I had no idea what a Rep was. I just thank God D.O. Wang knew what he was doing in the Senate, because Lazarus and I were standing there going, what is this? What is this? It was like we were in our own bubble and everybody else was out on the outside. So,
was there support? Was there a lot of support within the building for you to learn what you needed to?
God, no. Oh, goodness me. Christ almighty, here's big Clive Palmer, and it scared the hell out of him, I'll be honest with you. So even though this was brand new for Parliament, no one had come in here. I mean, you've got Clive Palmer on a pair of ice skates, just straight in there. Three normal Australians, especially with Glenn Lazarus and I, and people just going, oh, this is way too normal coming into Parliament. I think it scared the hell out of them, to be honest. They really, I laugh at Pauline Hanson. It goes, oh, it's so hard for us. And I say, hey, Pauline, we broke the seal, girlfriend. You are getting an easy run. Because to have normal people in Parliament scared the hell out of them. It was as funny as crap. I've got to be honest with you. It is only now that they are starting to get used to it and starting to have to deal with it. It's actually taking them a while to adjust, but which surprises me they adjust at all, because they're adjusting in adaptability. They have very little of it because they have no real life experience. But they are starting to get used to it now, and they're getting a tap, and they're lucky. I'm actually giving them a break for 16 months because I intend to come back. So I have been nice to them and given them a slight break, but I will be coming back. So hang on to your horses there, bugger them.
That idea of, putting your hand up, being fearless, opening yourself up to that kind of scrutiny, what do you say to other, particularly women, particularly independents, where there might be some kind of stirring, but everything in their brain says, don't do it, you idiot?
The good thing is with me, I think because I, at one stage fear nearly took my life, so fear does not work well for me. And I've always been one of these people to just, bugger it, I'm just jumping in and I'll sink or swim. And I don't think I've ever sunk, so I've always been able to swim. It doesn't matter what I chuck myself into. So for me, it was not a big deal. You should never worry about things until they actually either happen or you're actually in there, and then deal with it then, and find your own way. And for me, that sort of works. It is tough making your way through that, but usually I can manage to do that. I'm not saying that everybody can, and there are a lot of people that would not be comfortable in just doing what I did. But it worked for me, and for whatever reason, I had enough percentage to make my Senate seat, so I'll always be grateful for that. But like I said, my worst enemy is fear. So for me to have fear does not work very well for me, and I've learnt that along my life, or on my life journey, that for whatever reason, having fear, it just ruins me. I can't think properly. I can't do anything. So I just go out there and be fearless, and just go for it. The worst, you don't lose anything of having a shot at something in life. You might fail at having that shot, But what you'll learn along the way is it can be an amazing experience in the doors that can open. And you know what? I'd always say, I can assure you, it always takes me 2 shots. The first shot I usually fail really miserably, and then it usually takes me that second shot and I usually kick its ass, I'll be honest with you, and I have no problem in going twice.
You obviously deeply miss it, and your last speech in the Senate and everything you've said since, you can feel that incredible sadness you feel about not being there. What is it that you miss?
I wouldn't say that I actually miss Parliament. I'll be brutally honest with you. That's not something. What I miss is giving those people that are living sort of on the poverty line, below the poverty line, those people, all those things that they don't want to talk about, all those things about, they don't want to talk about mental illness because, Jesus, they can't handle it. They don't want to talk about drug addicts, they can't handle that. They don't want to talk about aged pensioners out there that can't pay their heating bills. They don't want to hear about it and they don't want to be in their face, and that's what I miss more than anything, because I like to be in their face and remind them every single opportunity what they are not doing, and I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's the advantage of being who I am. I don't take big political donations. No one owns me. No one can buy me, and therefore I've got full credibility sitting on that Senate floor, and I can go for, whether it's a blue collar worker, whether it's the aged pensioner, because they have to shut up and take it, because they've got nothing on me. Absolutely nothing. And I think that's what I miss more than anything, is actually being able to stand up for normal Australians out there where they don't get a voice, because I'm not worried about if I lose my seat. I just think, you know what, if I'm doing the right thing and I'm standing up for the people that I believe in, the people that do not have a voice, then I don't need to worry about my seat, because the next election I'll win it back. And I think that's a very big advantage from where I am, that I've been able to build that very, very quickly in that 3 years, especially after that first 12 months, where I continue to say to people, I gave Miley Cyrus a run for her money. I was a wrecking ball, and we could have all been making money out of her records, to be honest with you. But, so it's just, they get a normal person up there and I'm not scared. I have no fear of them whatsoever, and I don't care. And if they deserve to be told, I'm telling them. I have no problem. That's my motherly instinct. I have no problem in telling them. I don't care. And I don't care if they try and shut me down. I'll just go over the top. Trust me, I've got a massive drill voice. I don't need a microphone. I can just rip them into shreds. And no president of the Senate is going to stop Jacqui Lambie or can stop Jacqui Lambie. They just sort of go, OK, have you finished now? I go, yes, thank you.
One of the things you talked about a lot in the recent Tasmanian state election was money and political donations. And I think, did you do a real-time?
Yep.
Yeah, which I just hugely admire. No one will do it, where donations are transparent for everybody to see in real time. How grubby is it, the money in politics in Australia?
I can tell you now, I bet you there wouldn't be one of you in this room that could name every Victorian that is in federal parliament right now. As a matter of fact, you'd be lucky if you could name a couple. Okay? It really bothers me deeply that people are not earning their seats anymore. They're getting paid. They are paying for their seats. It's all about numbers. And this is where it's lost its way. It's not just that, it leads into corruption. And that's what the country is running on. And I can tell you, as an ex-soldier, and those men and women who have fought hard for their country and died for it, be turning in their graves, seeing the state of politics that is going on in this country. It bothers me terribly. Like you were saying, we have real-time disclosure. We have fallen behind in the last 2 weeks, but there's nothing to see there. They'll be up in the next few days just because we run on the smell of an oily rag. We don't take anything over $5,000, so we can't be bought. But I'll tell you what it does do. Even though last time I got 6 years and I only spent $17,000 on my own seat, which was an achievement in itself as an independent to get in the Senate in that top 6 and get 6 years. There is a lot of people out there that, that just are not earning it. They're just they're buying them, and it's really grubby stuff. And it just one side, the union's paying for all the seats and big businesses paying for the rest. And that I don't understand why we can't have public funding in this country. And I think it's coming to that. I think there's now stuff in South Australia that I've been quickly watching on ABC 24, I think this afternoon, about now Chinese donors' names are starting to come up with the Liberal Party in South Australia. What is wrong with these people? It is, and what annoys me more than anything is they actually treat Australians like they're bloody idiots. Because I feel like they're treating me like an idiot as well, because I know what goes on with those political donations. And I can tell you now, 18 months ago, I had a conversation with Malcolm Turnbull over the table, and I simply said to him, why can't you do real-time disclosure? Why can't you do that? And he said to me, this is the sort of leadership that we have in this country. Oh, well, when the Labor Party does it, we'll consider it. Why would you do that? If you have nothing to hide, why aren't you putting them up within a week or 2 weeks? If there is nothing to hide and you want to keep your integrity and you want to start building some trust, nobody trusts a politician, let's be honest. If you want to start building that trust, you had better start with those political donations, because I can tell you what, they are now starting to bubble above the surface. They're not sitting below it anymore, and people are starting to cotton onto this and they've had enough.
Well, huge respect, Jacqui Lambie. I don't know if anyone else has done it, and I think...
Can I just quickly say something? The thing is, that this is a disadvantage of it, though.
It's huge.
Yeah, I had candidates running, and even though I can get up on little money, trying to get other normal Australians up without all that cash is very, very difficult. So that's a disadvantage. But how do you overcome that? I don't know, but I can tell you now, I've had a lot of them in my life, and how do I overcome that? And I say, I don't know. And my father always says, you know what, don't you forget, where there's a bloody will, there's a bloody way. So we'll get there, but they're not taking my integrity away through the process. I can tell you that right now.
You thought about... I want to go back in time a bit now to find out more about your trajectory into Canberra. You thought about joining the police when you were very young. You then chose the army, and you were 18 years old. And I found that interesting as I was reading your book, that for somebody as wildly independent as you are, you've always been quite attracted to institutions with incredible structure and discipline. And I just wondered if you could speak to that a bit.
Yeah, I wanted to go into politics, so, you know, I am concerned about my head. But I don't know why. I think, you know, even though I was a rebel growing up and I'd had a little bit of experience in a police car, not on the right side of the law, and, you know, I'd visited the court on a number of occasions just to say hello to the judge. And... And I don't know what I think. My mother. I mean, she's half the size of me again, and you don't want to take that woman on. She tried to discipline. She brought us up from the time we were 13, and I just think that her discipline and her having structure in life. You know, you got up for school at a certain time and all that. And even though there was that rebellious side, Mum always kept that structure there, and I think that was very, very important. I'm not sure what drives me to those institutions, but I think I was meant to be there. I think my point is I can get into those institutions and I can have a good look at them and go, oh, my goodness me, you really need fixing here. So I'm not really sure, but you can put me into the institutions. Unlike most of them, I don't come institutionalised. I become more rebellious against them, to be honest. So I think sometimes fate works in the most mysterious way, and I think they need to be questioned. I don't care if they're the military institution. I don't care if they're a political institution. If they're not doing the right thing, then I'm probably going to let them know about that, and I have no fear in doing that. And they need to be questioned. They do need to be questioned, just like any other business or any other operating corporation out there or whatever. At times they need to be questioned to keep them on the straight and narrow. Now, that's quite exhausting in politics, I have to be honest. If it's not the military that's exhausting trying to keep them on the straight and narrow, those big men up there, politics is about the same. But it just makes me dig my heels in even deeper, even though, if I was to be honest with myself, I'm probably never going to win the fight. It's not going to stop me from taking the fight up to them. I love it. I just love it.
You do, and the fates sort of seem to, you know, come to you. You join the army, you have a compulsory pregnancy test at the beginning, so you're already at war without knowing it with the army bureaucracy, because it turns out that you were pregnant for your entire training, didn't know. And then when you find out and the army find out, they're stuck with a problem they've never had before.
I know. You got to love it when you're watching generals up there tap dance, don't you? I just love it. It's like questioning them during Senate estimates. There's nothing worse than a baggy arse ex-corporal sitting in front of you and some big general that thinks that he shouldn't be questioned. I love it. I think that's where I get it from. But yeah, even to that point where we did find out where I was pregnant, the first thing, their first reaction is, quick, cover it up. Cover it up. And that's what they try to do. And of course, here comes my mother riding on a massive horse and saying basically, well, you know what? If you do that, I'm going to sue you. Now, Mum wouldn't have even known what suing meant, but she was going to use it anyway. She'd have had that advice from the outside, and she was going to use it well, but that upset them greatly, because the last thing they wanted is Elvis out in the media. The good thing is, because I was one of those first women for that to happen to, they enabled me to do my driver's course when they found out I was about 20 or 21 weeks and was pregnant before I came into the army. That was a first. That over the next few years opened it up for other females to say, hey, we can do these courses. I say to those men in the armed forces, hey, many years ago we used to be ploughing those bloody fields, nearly dropping our kids on the spuds. So we are quite capable of doing a lot, pregnant or not pregnant, and that's the truth of the matter. There's a great quote where you write, the sooner military men understand that women can do more than two things at once and still have babies while in the army, the sooner our female military careers will be fully accepted. God help us all. Which I thought was a terrific quote. How far off this kind of understanding are we, and how far are we for women in politics? Oh, look, I think we've certainly come a long way. I think we made our mark in the 1970s, and they're more so in the 1990s, because a lot of women, housing prices went up. They realised if they wanted to provide more, they'd not only need to stay at home being a mother, they would need to go out into the workforce. And that has grown, and I think that has made women bigger, that has made them more fearless. And to actually have that build their own self-esteem up. And I think that's been great for women. I mean, it's now 2018. I would expect that, in another 10 years we will grow even more. Those women now know what I do. What's the worst thing you do? You're going to question a man. And I can tell you what, most men out there that are bullies out there, most of them are also cowards. So if you stand up there and you don't move and you rip their head off, and I'll tell you what, you don't want to be taking me on when you're a coward, because I would just about finish you off in a split second. I can smell you a mile away. And I think a lot more women are starting to get like that. And I think by having women like myself stand up, people like Gillian Triggs, Rosie Batty, God love her, standing up and being courageous and showing that women are not moving against men is only a good thing for the future of women in Australia and where we're heading. We will get there, and I don't think we're far off, to be honest. So do you think though that as somebody you yourself who has benefited from affirmative action, you write that in the book, in your army and military police training and support and so on, you don't think there's a need for quotas for women or any other special policies to support more women getting into government? No, women don't need special treatment. We're bigger and stronger than that, and we can stand our own 2 feet, and we're doing that quite nicely. And like I said, you give us another 10 or 15 years out there, and it won't be any women left over there with an apron around their waist in the kitchen sink. It'll be the men. I can tell you that right now. We're on our way. No, I don't believe in quotas, and I don't think most women out there want special treatment. They want to be able to make it on their own 2 feet. We just need a little bit more strength out there, and we'll make our own way. There's no doubt about that, and they're already doing that. We've come a very, very long way, and we'll get a lot further in a very short period of time yet.
I want to get into one area of policy. There's so many that we could talk about, but I'm particularly interested in your views on drug policy, partly because of your own experience, both yourself and close family members, and I'm certain lots and lots of other people that you've come across and met. One of the things that you advocate in the book strongly is this idea that parents should be able to force children under 17 into compulsory rehab. And it's an area of policy I'm really interested in as well. But that's one, and I've thought about it really carefully, what you've suggested. So tell us your reasons behind this idea.
Yeah, I think when my son went through what he went through, this would not have worked for my son because he was 19 at the time, and I started doing some inquiries and saying, why don't I have the power to get my son some help? And I found out very, very quickly it's unconstitutional, first of all, to make an adult go and get help. It doesn't matter how destructive they are on the outside, go figure. But we could do it for people, for adolescents 17 years and under, and give the parents the right to involuntary detox their children. Because I can tell you, when you come up against a drug like ice, it was not my son anymore. I could not negotiate with this thing. It was the most awful time. I was negotiating. You call it a drug, I call it a monster. It was from another planet. I could not negotiate with him. I could not talk to him. There is nothing worse than watching someone sit in front of you and they're your own son and you have fear of them because they're sitting here coming down doing this. You know, there's nothing more heartbreaking than watching your own child go through that and you can't do anything. You can't do anything. I had one of two choices. I either leave him in my house, and I got to a point where I was sleeping with a knife under my mattress and my handbag in, or I push him out the front door and pray to God he doesn't bring harm to another human being. That is how difficult it is for those parents out there. For whatever reason, whether it be God's way or whatever, my son has been very, very lucky. He's now been clean for 2.5 years. He ended up doing 18 months in rehabilitation in Teen Challenge in one of their centres in Toowoomba. He's now held down a job for 12 months. He has money in the bank, and unlike his mother, he's found bloody love. So I reckon he's miles out, so good on him. It is my son's 23rd birthday on Thursday night, and he's obviously here in Melbourne, so I look very forward to seeing him. I didn't see him over the Christmas period. I obviously speak to him every 3 or 4 days, and you know, it's pretty sad when you say, oh, you're all right, mate, and he goes, well, I'm not the one unemployed, Mum, and just lost my job because Granddad had a Scottish skirt on, you know, and I go, yeah, okay, mate. But, you know, it's the most amazing thing, but to watch those parents, there's still a lot of parents out there. The other thing is we don't have the rehab centres. You know, I think it was one of your guys here, I read in the paper in the last few days, one of the ministers saying, well, we're going to have a new hospital for 36 beds. And I said, I thought, that's great. Well, that's for the whole city, is it? Not having it at each town, because if you think that's enough bed for those young kids out there, or there's a lot of them out there and they're being affected by this, you know, and you can... Yeah, there is a lot going on there, and you can tell. I mean, I'm sure that they wouldn't take us if they could afford the other stuff. You've only got to look at Canberra, where the highest amount of people that take cocaine are actually per capita in Canberra, because you've got public servants out there that can afford it. They don't have to buy something that's cheap and nasty like ice. Now, when you can go and buy a bag of dope and it is laced with ice, we're not heading in the right direction in this country. So it bothers me very, very terribly. But the main thing is, the reason that they won't put these things in, I simply believe this, is because they are not prepared to spend the money on rehabilitating our own children. They would rather leave them out there, let them make destruction out there, because you can imagine what that's costing the community, rather than doing early intervention and doing what we possibly can to help them. I was very lucky with my son. He got himself into trouble and he had a choice: 3 months in jail, or you're going to rehab for 12 months. You come out 1 hour before that 12 months is out, and the judge was very strict on him. She said, I will chuck you in jail. Now, for whatever reason, when kids have a choice, they seem to do the right thing. If you lay the line down on them, you know, it is very difficult. But for some reason, when they get choice, they tend to make that right choice when they've hit rock bottom. So I was just very, very lucky. It worked out very well for my son. I still worry about that ice. It's highly addictive. As a mother, I still sits in the back of my head, and every 6 months that goes past, I go, thank God, that's another 6 months. Keep going, mate. So it is quite difficult. I've got my parents out there, they've got sons and daughters that are in their late 30s that have been on this stuff for 15 years. And they're never going to be able to repair them because they can't get them into rehab. It's made their lives miserable and everybody else's around them, and they're living broke. But they don't know what else to do because they're like me. They don't want to let that child of theirs out because they're worried about whether or not they're going to take out another human being. And that's the truth of the matter.
When I hear you talk about your son when he was using, I hear all the grief, all the fear, all the powerlessness of any parent or person that has loved a child who's addicted to drugs, particularly the powerlessness, and the call for rehab facilities. I don't know who could argue against that. The policy idea, though, of having forced rehab, which I feel comes out of that for us, just do something, but all the evidence would show that until, whether it's a child or a parent, somebody old or young or whatever their background, if they're not ready to stop using, forcing into a rehab facility simply won't work.
Yeah, I don't believe that. When I've got kids out there on ice pipe that are 11 years of old, you can't tell me they're an adult to make their own decisions, and I'm happy to make that decision for them. And that's what we're up against in this country. We're not talking about 17, 18-year-old kids. These kids are 12 or 13. You cannot negotiate with this drug, right? This drug is not negotiable. It doesn't matter how you look at it. Now, a responsible leader and responsible adult would step in and take charge of that. And that's how I see this going. I know what you're saying, but you can't tell me that brain has developed at 12 or 13 or 14 years of age where that person is an adult and is competent enough to make their own decisions. And that is where mum and dad and the leaders of our community need to step in. I'm not saying that, at 39 or at 38 that makes it a lot more difficult, but early intervention, leaving these kids and ignoring them and putting on Centrelink benefit and giving them a right to leave home is not the way to fix the problem. It is not the way to fix the problem. And that child will never be right. That child will end up being done out with prostitution, living on the streets. And what, I'm supposed to sit there and give them choice? No, I'm not giving them choice. I'm making the choice for them. It's as simple as that.
Why would it be any different then for a 12 or 13-year-old child whose parent is on ice to not demand that compulsory attendance at rehab for their parent?
It is very difficult for that parent. The first thing you need to do is remove that child out of that home. I'll be brutally honest with you, no one's winning on that ice stuff. Leaving that child in that area and that child smoking an ice pipe at 12 or 13, then we need to intervene and we need to remove that child. We need to do that because that is the right thing to do as a human being. To sit back and watch that child to continue down its mum and dad's path is just destruction waiting to happen. We're not talking about alcohol here. We're not talking whether it's alcohol or morphine addicts or anything. This stuff is a drug in itself. It's like nothing else I've ever seen. It's like it's from another planet. It's alienated. It is disgraceful. And what it does to these kids is just heartbreaking.
Let's move on while we've still got some time before we open up to the audience for some questions about your work now and your life now post the Senate. But start with describing that feeling, that awful November day last year when you realised you are officially Scottish, something that came, as you put it, with a complete set of bagpipes and a tartan skirt. One of the things I liked about your response a lot is that you just took responsibility straight away. You acknowledged you didn't check the forms deeply enough. You resigned, but you also stated that the Constitution should not be changed. And I thought that was unusual and typically Jacqui Lambie sort of surprise, I suppose. Did that come out of the sense of deep personal responsibility for mucking that up, or a respect for the Constitution as it is?
Yeah, I think it's just more respect for the Constitution as it is, and I think that there's more important things that need to be changed, like reconciliation with the Indigenous, and I just find it really greedy that they go and change it for themselves, but they still won't do anything about this Indigenous matter. I've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years since I first come into Parliament, they need to update the Constitution. They're too bloody lazy, they won't do it. And that's the way it is. But what bothers me even more in Section 44, it's not so much the dual citizenship. I'm happy that can sit there, that's fine. But it actually knocks out about 70% of Australians, because if they're in the military, they're working for the government, bits and pieces like that, unless you chuck your job in, you cannot go into Parliament, and that's not fair. I just don't think that's fair. But there are bigger things. Right now we have this Indigenous matter with reconciliation, and it would look very, very self-centred and selfish of politicians to go in there and be prepared to change Section 44 when there are other bigger problems in that Constitution that need to be updated.
Almost guaranteed they'll do it then, isn't it?
Yeah, if it's self-preservation. No, what they do is they have an inquiry that is done in-house instead of doing it independently, and now everybody else that's sitting there on dual citizenship, they're hoping this will just go away. They're really hoping this will go away. And the other thing is, well, I bet you some of those ex-politicians out there that have gone on those gold pensions, there'd have to be some of them that are dual citizens. You know, so how far is this going to go and who's going to push it? And I think now you can see it starting to disappear. And I think this will be about the end of it for them, because I think if the Australian people can see that there are some of us that have led by example and done the right thing, and then there's going to be others that actually get away with this crap, which is actually quite heartbreaking. But I have no intention of changing that Constitution unless it needs to be changed. There is that bit where it does deny many people out there the right to stand for Parliament, and that needs to be changed. The dual citizenship, not too concerned about that. Although it bothers me, they say, you know, you can go and join the army and it's got nothing to do with national security because you can have dual citizenship in the forces, but you can't have it in Parliament. But what's more important to me is that reconciliation. We need to change that bit in before we do anything else. If anything gets changed, that is first and foremost.
Tell us about the last couple of months. You've obviously been really busy with the Tasmanian election. A disappointment for you, a surprise. How are you? I know it's only a couple of days, but what are your reflections? So you fielded 12 candidates,
yep.
Didn't stand yourself. Mm-hmm. Tell us how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, so I think it was sort of a blessing in disguise that I already had those candidates chosen, and we were already out there from about last August. So for me, and for the sake of my father, I had to keep it together after I lost that dual citizenship. It was like I have to lead by example. I have to show people, you know, okay, well, that's happened, let's get on with it. Those 12 candidates, if I could show that I had it together and we were moving along, not to worry about it, and I would walk alongside them for the next 3.5 months, and I would worry about how I was going to pay for my house payments after that. So I have done that. Obviously, at the same time, we've been getting the book out there in the last 2 weeks. We did not win any seats in Tasmania, which was really disappointing this time around, but you have to start somewhere, I guess. We did not have a lot of money because of our political donation policies, and running 180,000, you know, spending $180,000 against millions, we could hold on until that last 2 weeks. But once they start belting those ads out at us and start, you know, putting more ads on TV, more ads on radio, that was it. We were gone. It's really unfortunate because I can tell you now we got through it without any scandal. I had 12 normal people out there, just normal Tasmanians that wanted a shot. There was no scandal during that 9 months. They just got on with their job with their boots on. You know, so not only did they have to put up with me losing my seat in the Senate, you know, they've had, I guess, as well. And then I sacked the senator that was representing the Jacqui Lambie network. They rode through all that. They did that very, very well. And I think that just goes to show what it does is give me some... It makes me feel better because I'd like to think myself as a leader and that I'm doing the right thing, and to keep those people together without having any hurdles, even what they went through with my dual citizenship and with me sacking my number 2 from removing him from the network is, you know, to them it wasn't even a bump on the road. They just got back out there with their boots on, and I could not have asked any more of those people to do anything. They were fabulous. Tasmanians obviously could not see that this time around, and I guess they're a little concerned about where I'm going and where I'm going to. And I could have ran and more than likely won my seat in state parliament. I refused to do that because I'm still hoping for the dream to be back there in that Senate. That means I've got no idea when the next election is going to be. It could be very close at the rate they're going, between all the bonking that's going on and everything else. I mean, at least somebody's getting some in Parliament, let's be honest. I must have been in the right, not in the right wing or something, honestly. But you just don't know, and that would have meant I could have been in Parliament for 3 months or 6 months, and I would have had to walk out of state Parliament, put one of my other people in there, and that's instability. It is not about Jacqui Lambie. It's not about Jacqui Lambie's network. It's about Tasmania first and foremost. And I keep saying this, and I will keep putting all that out there and putting the state first, because that is the way politics should be. It should be your electorate and your state first. It shouldn't be, never be your party. And that is where politics has gone to now. It's all about who's got the power. Not what is best for your state, not what is best for your electorate. God forbid if anyone crosses the floor. I mean, I don't know if anyone else knows this, but the rest of parliaments around the world, it's no big deal if you cross the floor anymore. People expect that because you are supposed to be there for your state or your electorate, not for your leader. So, you know, so we have some massive issues. So it has been difficult. I have to say I did come a little bit unstuck. I had about 3 hours off this afternoon, and it obviously got to me this afternoon. I've been saying to people for a week, especially after Saturday, we got up there and I thanked everybody and held it together and all that sort of stuff, and made sure I rang the candidates Sunday and Monday just to tell them we'll have a debrief in 2 or 3 weeks and a barbecue and get together and we'll have a good cry. I couldn't quite wait for that time. I dropped into a bundle for about an hour this afternoon. Had a good sook, I'll be honest with you, and I've picked myself back up. I do feel better. I will go home. I haven't taken any time off pretty much in the 3.5 years I've been in Parliament, and I ran straight in. I mean, it was only the last day I spent in a psych unit. It was only 2 years until I won my Senate seat. So I really haven't had a lot of time off. I haven't had a lot of time to sit back and reflect on what's going on. So I'll be grateful to get home on Friday and sit it out for a week or two, spend some time with my family, as much as I see my father a lot. You know, I'd like to see my niece and nephew. I've forgotten what they look like. It's been a really tough gig for me, and I think I probably just need a bit of TLC for the next few weeks and get back on my feet. But I certainly don't intend on going anywhere. I just need a rest for 7 days or 10 days. I just need to suck it in and get all that frustration out and do a lot of swearing at God, no doubt. I've been trying to hold my peace because I've got to do the right thing. We're on a book tour here, and once again, it comes down to leadership. As much as I'd like to be screaming at him, you know, and then move on. So I just need that bit of healing over the next week and a half, and then I'll be right to go again. I just need a slight rest. So I am looking forward to the future. I've got no idea what the future holds. I'm like any other normal Australian there. I've got enough for house payments for about 10 weeks. But I am going to have to go out there back into the real world and work. I don't give a stuff if it's pouring a schooner or making a coffee, as long as I can pay my house payments. I'm right to go on and just get through. It'd be nice to be able to keep my face out there somehow. I haven't quite worked that out yet, but I'm sure it's going to be fun trying. There'll be no doubt about that. So once again, this is where you have no fear. You just go and settle down for a week, and then get out there and just see what doors open and take that opportunity. As long as you can try and stay out there, because I'm never going to win the political front on political donations, so I have to work a way around them. And trust me, I bloody will work it out if it's the last thing I do. So I will get normal Australians up there. There's no doubt about that. I'm just not quite getting it right, but don't worry, I'll get there.
Well, it's going to be a very different strategy, isn't it, to try and reclaim that seat without a Clive Palmer, flying in and with buckets of money.
Yeah, I think because I was able to do it last time and it wasn't with Clive Palmer in that double D, and I did only spend $17,000 and I got fourth highest votes in Tasmania in 6 years, that it's not bothering me. I'm not so much bothered about winning my seat back. What bothers me is how am I going to get other normal Tasmanians up there to represent their state, or other Australians, normal people up there, that, give them 6 to 12 months like any other new job that they go into to find their feet, give them an opportunity and watch them thrive. Watch them thrive. How do I do that?
How do you do it, Jacqui? Because I think most Australians would love to know. I think I mean, everybody wants to see a range of people that are representative in any way of our country. And of course, we know it's not at the moment. How do you do it?
I'm not really sure, but I want every Australian to know in about 7 days I'll be right on the job. Back onto it.
Who did you really like in Parliament? Who surprised you?
Well, apparently I really liked Nick Xenophon because he took me out for Kentucky Fried Bloody Chicken. Anyways, what did he say? I was hot and spicy or something, so good on him. Look,
This was in the news this afternoon, the cheap date.
The cheap date.
Cheapskate.
Nick has a very dry sense of humour and I love him. And when a lot of people moved away from me within that first 12 months, Nick never moved. He was very solid and I'll always appreciate that with Nick. He just never moved. Even when I made mistakes, he'd come in and say, it's all right, get moving. And that was very, very big of Nick to do that. Penny Wong's another one. Rachel Seawood from the Greens. She sat next to me. I had no idea on political moves in the Senate. Well, she's taught me a lot and I'm very grateful for that. I only have to ring up Rach and say, Rach, I'm just making a really difficult move. And she'll say, I'll be on the floor. I'll come down and help you out. That's not a problem. Maurice Payne, a lot of people do not give her enough credit out there for how she's dealing with those men in defence, and she's doing a damn good job. I know she's a quiet achiever, but I need Victorians to realise you are very lucky to have her and she's not given enough credit. So there's people like her. Of course, there's always... it's more so the Senate. You have Claire Moore. I like to call her the grandmother of the Labor Party, and she certainly is. And what you see is what you get from her. And then, so I guess for me...
That's a longer list than anyone else has ever given. I'm impressed. I mean, I also noted, George Brandis, wasn't it, in the Senate was... he spoke very, very warmly in your last speech about how loved you are in there.
Yeah, I have to say, with George, funny relationship between George and I have to say. That's a... I needed his help a couple of times and I would just go knock on... George was always available. You didn't have to wait, you didn't have to book. If you need to see the attorney, I would just ring and he would be able to see me fairly quickly. There was a few incidents that I needed to, and I needed, because I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, and he was able to guide me on a couple of things. I won't go into that, but I am very grateful for his help in that area. So...
Well, that's the plus side. Now, of course, your vengeance for the Department of Veteran Affairs is what launched your political career. I'm not sure if anybody's ever gone into politics with a single act of sort of vengeance as strongly and focused as yours was. I wouldn't want to be your enemy. Are there any individuals in Parliament that, you reserve a bit of that vengeance for? Who have been really unhelpful. Yeah,
it'd have to be the Fixer, and I'd like to say the word I'd like to use for him. It starts with F, but anyway, it's Christopher Pyne. Can't stand the man. Just cannot stand the man. Oh God, if that's not if that's not a picture of a silver spoon in your mouth and all the way, I don't know what else is. But I really detest that man a lot. I don't trust him as far as I could put my boot up his clacker, and. He's just one of those people I just dislike, unfortunately. So, and the other one is Senator McDonald from Townsville. He's just a very, very nasty piece of work, and especially at females, and I don't like him. And I think maybe as much as I've just ran Michael Kent down there. Michael Kent's 70 plus, and he's a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, and I love him dearly. So it's nothing to do with age. But when it comes to Senator McDonald, he really needs a reality check, and it's about time he went and played some golf sticks. Trying to go out to pasture.
And is it and with Christopher Pyne, who I should say delighted the Fifth Estate audience here a year or so ago, with him, is it his personality and character, or is it run-ins that you've had and arguments over?
Oh no, he's just as slippery as they come. You couldn't trust him as far as you could kick him. He's just so slippery. It just amazes me. He actually disgusts me. He's that slippery. You can't trust them. But him, No, I don't even bother with him. You wipe. There is certain people you do wipe out, and he's one of them I've wiped out. I just don't even. I don't go near him. I just can't be bothered with him. It's just a waste of time to me.
It's a short.
We've all been clear about that. I'm sure that'll get back to him. Good luck in the South Australian election.
It's a shorter list. It's only 2 politicians I've ever met that I intensely dislike, actually. They're both former now. They're both blokes, different parties. One's federal, one's state. They've got the same initials, and if anybody can work it out, I'll take them out for dinner. I've been putting this one out here for a long time. Actually, no one's ever got it. Actually, no, sorry. Julia Gillard worked it out. She worked it out in
Did
about
she?
10
Good, take
seconds.
me out for dinner, because I imagine I probably wouldn't like them either. Could be a great dinner conversation.
Yeah, you wouldn't. If you would like to ask Jacqui Lambie a question, please put up your arm, and your hand, if a microphone lands in it, then start talking, and don't be shy. And in the meantime, while you're doing that, can someone throw me out a time call, because my clock has stopped working, and it says it's 6:30, and I don't believe it. It's right on 7? Oh dear, I'm late.
Jesus, that's a bad omen to start the week off, and I'm unemployed.
I know.
Go. Time stopped.
Time stopped. Anyone at all? Because I've got tons more. Thank you. Yeah. Just wait for the microphone, please.
Oh no, is that a Scottish accent?
Yeah.
It's always
No,
it's an
American accent,
Oh,
unfortunately.
that's all right.
It's a country you love.
The evil empire with Donald Trump there. But I'm a little bit reluctant to ask a question because I'm a bloke, but because the women were hanging back, I'll go for it. You're talking about normal Australians, normal Tasmanians, people who often don't have a lot of money. So we live in a society where there's increasing social inequality. And in fact, you hung out with Clive Palmer, who at least at one point had heaps of money. So what do you make of that? Do you think that's fair, or we got to do something about that, redistribute the wealth, or have a revolution, or what?
Look, I think everybody's seen that the divide between the richer and the poor is becoming greater. And that's very difficult. Look, I have to say, hanging around with Clive Palmer for a while was an experience I'll never forget. They live in quite a different world. It is, like you said, most of the wealth is in 1% of the population. What do you do about that? And it's continual greed. I mean, Christ's sake, how much money do people want? You can only spend so much. You can only do so much shopping before you fall off your feet. It bothers me. It bothers me terribly, and it's getting worse. And I don't know how you fix that. It really bothers me terribly, and that's a really big question. And I couldn't even start to give you the answer on that, but I do know that gap is widening.
Come at it another way. What do you think of Trump?
I just want to be careful with the Australian-American relationship here at the moment. No. I think I think I need to sort of sit back and watch him for another 12 months. So I'm not really comfortable in commenting. I'm sort of watching. I have been really busy as well over the last 3 months. A lot of my concentration has been in Tasmania, so I probably haven't been watching foreign politics as much as what I was at one stage. So
you do mention in the book, though, that he is the result of problems in America's democracy that we also have here. That populist momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it is populist. You can see with Palmer United, there's always 10% of Australians who are very dissatisfied with politics. And I think if you had enough money, call yourself whatever you want, you get 10% of the vote or close to it. which is really unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And that bothers me that percentage will grow as that gap widens between the rich and the poor. You'll get more dissatisfied people that they're looking for hope, and they'll grab the slightest bit of hope that they possibly can, and that's where the votes go. But yeah, I could see that with Clive Palmer. One Nation is another one, just getting that 10%, that real populist thing. And that's great. You can sit there and you have 3 or 4 subjects that you want to talk about and be big on that 10% of that Australian voters are disgruntled with. I would like to think that I don't want 10% of those voters. I want to spread myself right out because I want to get votes from all sides of the corner. And I think that if you're big enough and good enough, you can do that eventually. So,
how much time do you think Malcolm has got left before they challenge?
Look, I love Bill Shorten personally. He's a really good bloke to me, but I reckon Albanese's right behind him. That'd be your first one, and I'm saying that as nicely as possible. And I guess I don't think that the PM does have a lot of time. When you've got Tony Abbott that say, well, I'm not sniggering or anything else, and they're doing all that. We've got Barnaby Joyce out in the loose at the moment. We don't know what effect that's going to have. The trouble is with Malcolm, with all due respect, he does not handle those personal issues very, very well at all. And you've got to be a great all-rounder. You can't just live there as a banker, unfortunately. And I think the biggest letdown with the PM at the moment is that we all had so much hope, and we all really did actually have a lot of hope, and that has been diminished over time, and that's not helping the situation. And quite frankly, I think that until we get a true leader that will stand up to their own party, and at times the people of Australia, and the people of Australia will see that and say, well, you know what, I may not agree with all your stuff, but you've actually got a spine. I think this is a problem, and I think that he lacks a spine, and he's not hardcore enough, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, but yeah, it's only a matter of time. It's like, quick, hurry up, call an election. I'm ready. I just need a week's rest. Now, if they just give me a week's rest, it's all about me. No.
I was just about to ask you, when would be the perfect timing for you? You have a nice rest, but.
By next Friday. Friday's good. Friday's very good for me. I'm in.
I think we better let you go and start your rest, just in case it's sooner than you think.
Correct. Yeah, anything can happen in politics happens in an hour.
Yeah, and you obviously need the rest. I mean, and you deserve the rest. Thank you for coming here tonight. I want to thank Linda and Kiri as well, who have been translating tirelessly for Auslan tonight. We can't always have them here, but we love it when we can. Thank you very, very much.
I did say that I would offer my services of sign language, but really if there's only one sign I know, and it's probably not appropriate.
Alan and Unwin are down the back, and Jacqui will be signing autographs, and she'll give you the sign, I'm sure, in private if you ask for it. Just to let you know quickly that in 2 weeks' time, the Fifth Estate is fortnightly on a Tuesday evening, and next up we've got one of Obama's communications directors. It booked out, honestly, in about 90 seconds last night. But heads up, obviously the podcast is always there, but also it's always worth checking the Wheeler website 24 hours before an event that's booked out. Occasionally people ring up and cancel a ticket, and you can pick one up at the last minute. So I'm really looking forward to that in a fortnight. Jacqui Lambie's book is called Rebel with a Cause. Thank you for joining us tonight, and for being you, Jacqui. It's a good thing.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you all for coming.
Visit wheelercentre.com for the best in books, writing and ideas from Melbourne, Australia and the world.